there, it's your old pal Keith from wavetables.lol. I'm excited about a couple of things lately. The first being the forthcoming Backrooms film from A24. That's the major motion picture version of the Kane Parsons Backrooms series. I'm rather a fan of Kane's work, both his sound design and music and his filmmaking skills, and I really enjoy his Backrooms series, which is all like CGI. It's all digitally generated, but now it's like a live-action major motion picture, and I can't wait for that. And at the same time, I've been working with Alex over at Vulture Culture on Legendary Synths Volumes 1 and 2 for Omnisphere 3. And so these are sample collections, right? Little sample libraries that are quite inexpensive. They're like $10 each for Volume 1 and Volume 2. And they're currently available as WAV and SFZ format. But I've converted them into multi-samples for Omnisphere 3. And this is exciting because it's going to be the first multi-sampled set of sound sources that didn't come from Spectrasonics. Like, no one's done that before. So it's very cool. And these two interests are colliding as I have been working on some patch ideas that use Legendary Synths. And today I'm using Legendary Synths Volume 1 exclusively. And, you know, these sounds, there's some real classics in here. You know, like the old soundtrack. That in itself is kind of an analog horror sort of sound, right? Twin Peaks is maybe one of the progenitors of what we have come to call analog horror. And so I've been having a lot of fun using Omnisphere 3 and some of the newer effects and newer features in Omnisphere 3 to do like vaguely liminal ambient sounding, you know, maybe analog horror inspired sounds. And so what I wanted to do today is like work on a new patch that kind of maybe takes some ideas from those types of genres and works them in. You know, I've done that already. Like, here's a very like nostalgic, you know, over the top kind of analog sounding patch. This is called Film Strip. And you hear what's going on there. I mean, there's an awful lot of effects going on, including like the Noisemaker effect from Omnisphere 3 using this film projector sound. And then there's some noise and like tape drift on both of the layers going into here, and then very retro effects like a spring reverb on this B layer. You can hear how with the effects off. Very, very different sound, yeah? We'll put both layers back in. And so these are two sound sources from Legendary Synths Volume 1. So there's a JX10 pad, this thing called Maze Pad. That's Fat Fingers. That's a very nostalgic sound to me. Like this reminds me of one of the first synthesized sounds that I ever remember hearing. That detuned kind of square wave thing that's going on in this layer, right? And I associate it with like film strips that I would have heard in elementary school. And so I put that very strong film loop kind of noise behind this. So anyway, those are the kinds of ideas I want to explore. I mean, I've also done stuff like that I played in the intro. There's just kind of, this has kind of like a VHS type of drift to it. And it's using actually a sample from the Wavestation as well as some JX10 stuff. And we could take these ideas even further. Here's another one. Kind of, this is more in like a horror scoring vein, I guess, with this pitch shift. And there's very detailed stuff that's going on in the long sustain, right? With this is a built-in Omnisphere sound source called a Clock Shop. And then I've got a Wavestation pad, Wavestation, and a Poly 800 kind of vocal sound in here. I don't think I meant for it to dip down like this. I think I meant for this envelope to be like this. So it like glides up a semitone. And that sort of reminds me of some of the horror scoring tricks that like Christopher Young would have used. So Christopher Young did the soundtrack to Hellraiser. The second soundtrack to Hellraiser, the first version of the soundtrack was by the industrial band Coil, which is super cool too, but it didn't wind up in the film. These kind of tricks with these almost like articulations here, where this patch, drifts up by a semitone. That's another thing I've been thinking about a lot lately as I work with other sample libraries that have very interesting articulations in them. Like I did a thing on Space Age Colors that has like these grace note articulations that do that kind of semitone up or down that I think is kind of fun. It's fun to think about sound design in that way. Anyway, what I wanted to do is like build a fresh patch. So I'm going to take a short break, as I always do, and then we'll get into a specific idea. We're going to use some ideas maybe from like musique concrète. Musique concrète. So do your French right, Keith. And analog horror, and maybe the sounds that we think the Backrooms might sound like. And that's what we're going to do. Oh, the third thing I'm really excited about is we've reached 2,000 subscribers on the channel. So if you're new here, like and subscribe for more talky synthesizer content. Another thing I should mention, actually, Vulture Culture is doing, let's go get a default patch while I'm talking. Let's initialize our patch, right? Vulture Culture is doing a series over the next couple of weeks of his members-only live streams where he will be doing some patch programming with these new collections of sound sources. So here's our default patch. What I want to do is there's a certain sound source that I want to use that I haven't used yet. Let's go get it. Let's see. I have so many sound sources because I've been making other multi-sampled sound sources for Omnisphere. So my list is maybe a little bit bigger than you would see in yours, and I've talked about those in previous videos. Ooh, itchy. It's warm in San Francisco today, and my jacket's making me a little itchy. I want to get this, it's a bell patch. What is it? It's a Poly 800 vibrato strings. So there's a bell at the front of this, and then this very analog sounding analog strings thing comes in, and you can hear that there's vibrato on it. These samples, by the way, are excellently looped, so you don't actually hear the loop points or anything. Really great job by Alex on these. And what I want to do with this is I want to turn this into something that maybe sounds a little bit like reverse tape. At least that's going to be a concept that I want to get into this patch. Some component will be as if it's like a tape splice and the sound just cuts off. So like when you release the keys, I want to leave it here in kind of this default amp state where the release time is very short, maybe even like almost instantaneous. And then I want to fill up the space after that with some effects, okay? But we'll start with this. So I'm going to go into my wave settings now, and I'm going to adjust analog to be above 0.4. When you do that, that starts to affect like pitch drift. So that kind of gives each strike of the key a slightly different pitch, and I also want them to drift over time, as we would find in an analog synth. And this isn't really, like, rich enough for me, so I'm going to go over to the unison settings. I'm going to turn on unison and just see what we can get. There we go. And I might want this even to be, like, significantly detuned. I like how that's really richly detuned, but I maybe want to mix it down a little bit. Okay, cool. Let's take that and we might undo some of these changes. Oh, look, it's Alex right now. He's just written to me. What's going on? Oh, well, he's not doing a members only stream. Anyway, okay, well, not this week. Anyway, starting next week. That's good. That gives me time to get this video out. Now, one thing I would do with a lot of patches like this is I would give it some interest by modulating pan position with key track. And so what this is going to do, this is going to spread different keys out in the stereo field, right? So like my high notes, my low notes are going to come more on the left side of the spectrum, and my higher notes will come more on the right side of the spectrum. You can see that panorama he's trying to say. No, we don't want this over the top. We just want a little bit of that. Whoa, way too high. All right, let's get into some effects on this layer. I'm going to go to effects, and then, oops, I don't want this to be on everything. Let's go over to main. Let's make our signal path independent so that we have independent control over the effects on our different layers. And we'll go here to layer A. I want to use the unstable drifter. Let's see here. Is that a color? No, that's a modulation effect. Chorus, where's unstable drifter? Where are you, unstable drifter? I like the sound of this guy. Let's find a good preset to work from. 70s warm chorus, maybe? Oh yeah. And we're definitely going for that kind of retro nostalgic sound, yeah? Okay, and so like I said, we're going to leave it with this sort of weird release time that's like instantaneous, where it just cuts off. And I'm going to fill in the space after that happens with a delay effect. Let's actually put a delay here. And we're going to use magnetic echo. So this is a simulation. And we've got the mix all the way up at 100%. So you see I press the keys and it comes in later. I like this, I like these really, let's see here. Ooh, extra long eighths, maybe? What is light spread echo? That's not what I want. I want my time. I want you to still be able to hear that the sound went away really quick, but I want it then to be a little spoopy. And I'm not going to tempo sync this, although we could. It's just the time. The time is the time. And I definitely want, I want maximum wow, which is where we are. Should we spread the sound out in stereo a bit? Now we could change kind of the number of echoes by doing multi-head. And that's kind of cool, but I feel like it ruins the effect a little bit. I'm going to turn this noise up. I'm going to change this. In our chorus, let's go into the extra settings. I want to move chaos up. I want to get more of that pitch instability. Alright, that's cool. And then on the common part of the effects, let's drop a reverb in here. Maybe here. There's all sorts of great reverbs, of course. I think I want something... Now, the Velvet Verb is kind of like a Lexicon 224, which would be sort of period appropriate if we're going for sort of an 80s retro effect. But there's also some very interesting reverbs that you can get out of the Super Verb or even Solar Shimmer, which is Shimmer Verb. I don't know, do we like the shimmer on this? I think I just want to take this like really, really far down. Just a little bit of this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's cool. Are we getting... Does this feel like found footage? Maybe. The thing I thought I would do on a new layer, say our B layer, let's go get something that could be like a, like kind of a sub-oscillator. And, whoops, I'm not filtering by Legendary Synths Volume 1, am I? Let's go do that. Let's get, I think I want one of the source things. There's some Moog source samples here, some of which are very deep. Let's see. Where is it? Source. Where are the source ones? I thought that would show up. There, well, here's one. What about this one? That's what I want. I want this like Taurus bass. And we're gonna highly modify this. You know, it's kind of hard to talk and do sound design at the same time, right? You could give it a try sometime. I'm gonna move my attack to be really slow on this. Now, it's kind of covering up the bell, right? So I'm going to adjust this. I want it to come in with more of an exponential curve, I think. There we go. And its overall level, it just needs to come down. Yeah, I like that a lot. And now we're going to kind of old-timey-ify this. I think there's a couple things I want to do. One, I want to move this guy's tuning like down 7, maybe 7 cents. We'll try it at 7. And I'm going to take layer A and shift it up 7 cents. So this will give like a really rich chorusing effect when we hear that second oscillator come in. Now, can this B layer benefit from some unison? Maybe. Let's solo it. This might make it a little too soft. Although I kind of like that. I guess the other trick we could do is we could make the unison voice 1 octave lower. That's pretty cool. Okay. And I think I want to like tape-ify this a little bit, right? So in the effects here, now there's a lot of different ways to get an unstable pitch kind of feel that goes beyond, and I kind of forgot to do this. I want to move analog up like this and drift up like this for this oscillator. Okay. And then, so, you know, I could modulate the oscillator tuning with like a noise shape to LFO, but I really like the tape-ish effects that are in Omnisphere 3. And I find their wow and flutter like actually very convincing. And let's maybe start with there's an uncalibrated tape deck. Oh, that's really seasick. But maybe we'll just like back that off. We'll start there. I really like that. Let's mix that back in with the A layer. And I'm kind of feeling like B maybe shouldn't do the same thing, and maybe it should have some release on it, you know, rather than just cutting off like a little tape effect. Can we stop that from happening? Could we still hear the effect in the A layer? Let's listen. Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. I want to take in our common effects. Let's see. We do want the tape effect, but I feel like this could use some compression. Maybe we can use kind of a color compression, like the 50s tube compressor. Could sound pretty cool. Switch it out. Try a different preset, maybe. Blue and drive. That's pretty nice. Now, another trick that I will do sometimes is there's a really great utility module. Like maybe you've never noticed this before, but under utility there is an imager. And so if we wanted to maybe expand that stereo effect on the bell part, we could throw one of these in and we'll put it like after the drifter, maybe even after the tape echo itself. Oops, I moved those into the wrong order, didn't I? Let's see. How does this sound? Let's turn off the B layer. So here it is mono. And then, what if it's a little wider? Well, I kind of like that. And there's even like an auto panner here. It's like that's a thing you can do. It's sort of a hidden auto pan effect. We're not going to use that, but I just wanted to point out that it's there. The imager is very, very useful. And I think, let's see, I think I want a little more velocity responsiveness on the bell here. And then I'll do the same thing with the B layer. I just want it to have a little more dynamic range. And let's have that B layer swell. Here, I'll zoom in on the envelope so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just moving the sustain level down, right? So yeah, we don't want it to like dominate so much. Okay, cool. Let's save our work before we go any further and screw things up. Let's save our patch. We will call this, let's see, this is in Legendary Synths, volume 1, so this is going to be VC1. What did we say? This is found footage. Found footage, KRC 1. Just so I've got a little versioning on there. And set myself as the author. There we go. I might add other parameters to this later. Save already. There we go. And there's kind of the beginnings of a liminally spacey soundtracky kind of patch. It's maybe more nostalgic than spooky, which is okay. I do like how there's just kind of a nice, gentle, tapey drift to these things. Now, I did want to have a little bit more of like kind of a backward sound effect going on in this. You know, again, this idea like there's a piece of tape that's been spliced and reversed. And so we'll work on that next. Spoopy. So, turn my levels up a little bit. So yeah, costume change because as I was completing this video, my CPU fan gave up the ghost in the machine that I record and edit my videos on. And so I had to order some new parts and repaste the whole gosh darn thing. Anyway, my thermals are much better, and my recording environment is actually much quieter. Those fans were just, they were clogged with just all sorts of like grody stuff that's in the environment all around us. So for this last part of this sound, I'm just going to talk through actually what I did here rather than building it up from scratch. So I went with, since I was trying to get more, kind of this reverse tape effect, I went with the old, I know this is not very creative, I went with the old reverse cymbal trick. So in layer D here, I've got a sample oscillator and one of the built-in sound sources, which is this thing called a small Chinese cymbal. Okay, and I just loaded it up into there. And you'll see if I go into Wave here, I've got it reversed. So you can actually take any sound source in Omnisphere and you can play it in reverse just by clicking the reverse button over here. The other thing that I've done with this, right? So let's take it out of reverse. We won't actually hear it because I've got start all the way up there. So this is what this sounds like by itself. And what I've done is I've disabled keyboard tracking, right? So instead of it tracking the keyboard, I've got it independent of the keyboard. And then to get a little bit of pitch variation back into it, I am modulating the key tracking to pitch coarse, right? So that there's just a little bit of variation over the keyboard. So if I go way up, there's the cymbal. And if I go way down, right? But it doesn't track the keyboard at 100%. So this is the trick that I do when I'm making enharmonic attacks and things like that. In addition to it being reversed, and you'll see that if we go back into reverse, it takes a very long time to actually hear anything happening. And that's because the tail on this sample is extremely long. So I had to move start up like this, about into this range. There we go. So it starts to come in at a reasonable time, right? And then, we're just modulating the pitch slightly up and down the keyboard. And then it's affected all the heck. So on the actual layer effects, I've got an EQ. We'll turn these off one by one and listen to them. Okay, so that's our reverse cymbal. And I'm using the vintage EQ2 here, which is kind of like, I guess it's like a Pultec style EQ. So you can do like really high boosts with it. And I thought boosting here at 5,000 kind of really brings that sort of, sounds like kind of a knife being sharpened or something, brings that out in the sample. And then you might never have used this effect, but there's a really cool, I guess it's an impulse response convolution sort of effect. It's called inner space, but instead of having like reverb tails modeled into it, it has like very strange kind of spacey effects, right? So it's got like, beads and bouncing and drum heads and mechanical sounds, and running the cymbal through these I thought was pretty interesting. You can play around with that a whole lot. I'm just going back here to get my original patch. Okay, so let's go back here. So we've got the inner space, and then I'm using inversions, which is a reverb effect that like flips the sample as it plays. So we get all sorts of weird modulations over time, right? And then we've got the analog studio to give us our wow and flutter, which I just thought was really cool. And so, in the context of the sound, now we've got this spooky that comes back in. I did do one other modulation on this. I've got the wheel here, the mod wheel. Boy, poppy, stop that. Like and subscribe for more poppy synthesizer content. I do have a wheel set to amplitude, and it takes the amplitude all the way down. So if I move the wheel up, I don't have that reverse cymbal effect, but if I move the wheel back down, shook. So there you go. So there's kind of, there's my found footage sound. So a bunch of other things that we could talk about in terms of like sort of, liminal inspirations in sound design. Of course, one of those is like if you wanted to do your own little Backrooms animation or something, you might need the buzzing of the lights, right? And so here's a little effect patch that's just 60 cycle hum, right? So it's just a sawtooth wave that I've got tuned to approximately 60 hertz. And the way I did that, if you here's a handy thing. I made myself a long time ago a little single cycle waveform tuning chart. But anyway, one component of this is that we can find where on the keyboard about 60 hertz is, and you can see that it's right around A sharp 1. So A sharp 1 or B1 actually has a pitch of roughly 60 hertz. And so what I did is I just tuned this layer C to layer D, which does have keyboard tracking on it. You see that tracking here is off, so that layer C always plays the same pitch. And then to get it into tune with D, we just go down here to like A sharp 1. You can hear with D on, these are very close together now. So that's how I found 60 hertz. And so, I just adjusted the coarse and the fine until these two layers were in tune. But then we take D out in the final patch. And then the effects I'm running here, of course, we don't want to do the warbly effect on this so much. But I'm using a multiband distortion to kind of add a little more character to our simple sawtooth wave. And then the Noisemaker effect in Omnisphere. Here it's using this analog tape kind of sound, right? And then we run it through Analog Studio. Oh, I guess I do have some wow and flutter on it. That's kind of interesting effect anyway. So there you go. What's in the common effects? Oh, there's another Noisemaker here. So I got a compressor. We're using Noisemaker again. There's so many different noises you can get out of this thing. I really like this. See, there it is without the noise. I really like this old computer fans. That's ironic, isn't it? Maybe it was the old computer fans plugin that like broke my actual computer fan. And then, another really nice utility module in Omnisphere that's worth talking about is this Imager. So this is under Utility, Imager, and this is like just a general kind of gain staging effect module. And so you can actually take your stereo image and you can go all the way to mono. Now we weren't doing anything like, especially stereo with this patch, but maybe the noise is stereo, I don't know. So I wanted to monoify things. So I just moved this down like, about minus 80% so that we're almost completely mono. But you see that it's cool that you've got this gain control right here too. So that's another nice little gain staging thing that you can do. And then of course, we've got a little reverb to give us just a little bit of space in this. Okay, you're like, that's not very exciting. That's you modeled 60 cycle hum, whatever. One final patch that I wanted to talk about. Let's go up. So this might ring a bell. There's so many inspirations for, liminal ambient music that we could turn to, but one that's closely associated with the Backrooms is this track by In Stupendo that's called 647. And if you've watched the Kane Pixels Backrooms films, you've heard this. This gets used in the trailer as well for that movie, I believe. And it sounds like this. This is very interesting repeated figure, right? It's just playing an F approximately. That's me. And so I guess it's kind of a piano sample, but it could just be a very simple synthesizer sound as well. But it's kind of warbly and modulated in a strange way. And of course, whether or not it is a piano, it's occupying that same kind of piano-like frequency space. So I thought this was a really interesting sound. And I'm not trying to emulate it exactly. I'm just kind of taking inspiration from it. But so to make this patch, I'm just starting with another sample from the Legendary Synths collection. This is from the Legendary Synths Volume 2, and this is a K3 piano. So it's kind of a the bass sample here is sort of, like an analog synth piano patch. You can hear with the effects off how it sounds. And one thing that I hear when I listen to that in stupendo track is this. The pitch on this patch is probably being modulated with a tape effect, but it also sounds like sometimes there's an additional kind of swooping into it. And so in addition to, having, let's see, where is it? I guess it's on the A layer effects. In addition to using Analog Studio and the Wow and Flutter tape effect, I added a little bit of additional uncertainty to the pitch by using mod envelope. So here's my mod envelope number 2. Let's zoom into it. And I kind of made this little shape so this goes right, and just using that very slightly to modulate the pitch. So here is the mod envelope 2 to pitch fine. You can see that I've got just a few cents of detune there, but it gets sort of randomized by taking LFO1, and LFO1 is what's modulating envelope 2 depth. And so LFO1 is this free running sample and hold type of LFO, so that sometimes we get a pitch variation, and sometimes it's bigger. And then, just simply having that running into, I used a little EQ on it to kind of change the sound character a bit, but then I've got Superverb with the natural room convolution. And I thought this gave like a very close kind of feel to the cozy reverb that's in 647. So there you go. That's like another cool liminal idea. If you want to explore the topic of liminal ambient more, what's his bucket? Venus Theory has a really great video that he did that's called Liminal Ambient, and he explores the genre. I don't think he talks about in stupendo, but he talks about an artist called One Heart and a couple of other sort of seminal liminal ambient type musicians. I found it very interesting to get his take on that. And then in stupendo themselves, since his music is being used in the Backrooms soundtrack of, man, A24's marketing is like just so on tip for the Backrooms movie. They just dropped this like funny like DJ set where in stupendo plays kind of not all liminal ambient, but a bunch of different tracks that you might associate with the liminal genre, including 647, and I think some of Kane Parsons' own music in this like funny little Backrooms set. So I thought that was very clever, and it's an interesting listen too. I think the track selection is kind of nice. One thing they didn't do is I don't think they really put the track list in it. Well, they're not time-stamped, so you can see what the tracks are, but we don't know exactly where they have it. Someone probably did that in the comments already. Well, so there you go. A bunch of, little liminal ideas. By the way, Vulture Culture is going to be, where is Vulture Culture? Where are you, Vulture Culture? Vulture Culture is doing a series of members-only streams, so go join his channel and become a member if you want to see these. His next several Monday night live streams, including the one that happens tonight, it is currently Memorial Day, are going to be about the legendary synths collections for Omnisphere, and he will be building his own patches live. So if you can't get enough of patching from scratch on Omnisphere, come and join us in Vulture Culture's live stream. I think that's it for this video. I have some other stuff I wanted to talk about, but I think I'm going to make it part of a separate one. There's definitely a whole bunch of stuff to explore here with the legendary synths. And again, while the Omnisphere 3 version is not published yet on his site, it will be a free upgrade to the Legendary Synths Volume 1 and 2 sample pack. So definitely go get those. They're just $10 right now, and you will then have the Omnisphere versions in a couple weeks as soon as he's done creating a bunch of cool patches. Then definitely my patches will be included in that set as well. I've done a bunch of different things. I'm probably going to do some more weird liminal spacey kind of stuff because that's the tip I'm on right now. Hey, for everything else that I do, go to wavetables.lol. Don't forget that I actually made a reverb that's called Liminal Space. I'm not using it here because we're purely using Omnisphere. But that's a cool thing. It runs on Windows as VST3 and clap format. Go get that. That's just $10. And I will talk to you later.